Hello. In this video, you'll learn how to apply custom CSS to your Gutenberg blocks to turn your website from this into this. I'll show you how to build custom alert boxes, make a beautiful separator with icon, style your images like a framed portrait, and build a custom callout box using the Gutenberg group element. I also recommend you check out my previous video, which is a complete guide on how to use the WordPress block editor and the most common Gutenberg blocks. We're going to write all the CSS as we go, but if you want to download the complete CSS styles for yourself, go to buildthatwebsite.com/getcss or click the link in the video description. All right, let's dive in. So as you can see, what we have is a very bare bones generate press layout, and we have a basic post. We have introductory paragraph, unordered list, heading, another paragraph, an ordered list, some subheadings, an image, a group, another list, and a button inside the group. And it looks fine, but it looks very generic. It's unstyled. It's not unique at all. Like when you come to this website, you're not going to remember that you came to this website. And I'm going to show you how to turn it into something really distinctive and unique with just a few lines of custom CSS, and we're going to style each of these elements. All right, let's get started. So the first thing we're going to do is maybe we want to make a little alert box in the second paragraph here. Like, hey, stop and read this thing you should know. So first of all, the Gutenberg editor has some built-in color settings, and you can set a background color for paragraphs. So right away we can do this. And if we save that and look on the front end, you can see it adds a little bit of padding, and we have this paragraph now with the background color. But what if we want to make it a little more interesting? Say we want to add a border and maybe an image. So the first thing we want to do is we want to add a custom CSS class so that we can style this. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, we'll call it an alert box. So we're going to add the alert class, and we'll save the draft, and we're going to go back to the front end and just refresh. And what we're going to be using is the Chrome inspector that will let you analyze the HTML of the document so that we can get the right classes to target for our CSS rules. All right, so we have a P, it's of class alert. We assign that, and it's also has background. That means that they've added this background, and it's the bluish gray background. So we know we want to target its P element with the class alert. Now, in order to enter the CSS rules that we're going to use, I'm using a plugin called Custom CSS Pro. It's completely free. You can find it in the WordPress plugin repository. And I do know that you can add custom CSS with the with the WordPress customizer. You can just add additional CSS. The downside of using the built-in customizer is that it is tied to the active theme that you're using. So if you change themes, you'll lose all that custom CSS. It goes with the theme. So when it comes to styling content as opposed to theme elements, I like to keep that CSS separate. So I like to use a plugin. So we're going to open the Custom CSS Pro, and it's going to take me to the wrong page, of course. So I'm going to have to publish this post, and then we will view the post and open Custom CSS Pro now. Okay. Now we can start with our rules. So we know we have the P alert box. So we're going to create a rule for a P element of class alert. So that's period alert, means it's an element of class alert. And we're going to add our rules. And I love that it auto completes the brackets. So it auto closes the brackets for you, and it will let you know if your CSS rules are wrong or you have an error in your code. So the first thing that we're going to do is I want to add a border. So we're going to go border 1 pixel solid gray, and we'll see how that looks. And you sort of can't see it. So let's go maybe 2 pixels. Okay, that stands out a little bit more. And maybe we'll add a small border radius just to put a little curvature at the corners. Okay, and then maybe we would like to add an image also, just to add a little bit of style. So let's go, we need to make room for the image. So let's add in some padding at the top and left. So we're gonna go padding. So the top padding is first. So let's try 40 pixels. Then the right padding can probably stay the same, is 30 pixels. Bottom padding, 30 pixels is fine. And then left padding, maybe like 60 pixels. Let's try 70 pixels just to make plenty of room there for our icon that we're going to put there. Okay, so we have our padding on our element, and now we want to add a background image. You can do this completely with CSS. I have already added some icons to my media library, and I got these from Flat Icons. I have a premium subscription, which allows you to use any of their icons without attribution. If you use their free plan, you get a limited set of icons, and you have to put a link to the icon that you use in every page. So, and I'll have my affiliate link right at the bottom of the screen, and you could use that to sign up for a plan if you want to check it out. So for this alert box, we're going to use this one. So I want to grab the URL of the file, and then we're going to go back and we're going to set a background image. So background URL. You make sure you put the quotes, and we will paste the path of the image. Now, as you can see, it's way too big. So the first thing we want to do is change the size. So we're going to go background size. Let's try 30 pixels. And now it's repeating across the entire box. So let's create a new rule. Background repeat, no repeat. So it's only going to be the one. Now it's still kind of not in the right place. So we want to change the position. So we're going to do background position. And this is relative to the top left corner of the box. So of the P alert element, the pixel dimensions that we're going to enter are relative to the top left corner. So we're going to go maybe 15 pixels. So that's 15 pixels from the left and 15 pixels from the top. And that seems about to be the right spot. And maybe we can make it a little bit bigger. Okay. That looks good. So we have ourselves our styled alert box element. That was pretty easy. So let's save our changes. And what's great now is if we create a new box, so let's say we duplicate this, we'll make another box, but we want to change the color, the background color to say yellow, a light yellow. And we click update, and you can confirm that this also has the same class alert. If we go back to the preview and hit refresh, whoops. And you can see you can add it to any paragraph element just by putting the class alert on the element, and it will apply all these styles. All right, so for now, I actually like the yellow box a little bit better, so let's delete the gray box. Okay, so now we have this sort of generic bulleted list, but let's say we wanted to get rid of the bullet that we have and put in like a Unicode icon just to give it a little bit more style, and maybe we'll add a color to the icon as well. So we're gonna go back, okay. And let's say we wanna do it to all our unordered lists. So we're not gonna assign a class to this element, we're just gonna make this the default style of all our lists. So the first thing we wanna do is get the class of the blocks. So there's no class, it's just an unordered list. And then we have a list item. So the first thing we want to do is we'll have a rule that targets unordered lists. And we want to make the list style type to none. And this will remove the bullets, as you see. So there's no more bullets in front of our list. Now, the next thing we need to do is create what's called a pseudo element. And you can make a before pseudo element and an after pseudo element where you can add text or content or use it to create cool shapes and stuff. And I'm going to show you how that works. So we're going to put the before element on each list item element. So we're going to target the UL list item before. And then to create one, you just have to make a content. So we're going to put in a placeholder for now. We'll just put in the letter X just so you can see it. And you can see it goes right in front of the list item. Now, in order to move it exactly where we want it, we actually need to change the position of list items to be relative so that we can position our before element, our before pseudo element exactly where we want. So we're going to make list item position relative. Now we can change the position of the pseudo element to absolute. And what this does is now we're going to position the before element relative to the top left corner of the list item element. So we could, for example, move it down 10 pixels from the top, or we could move it left -20 pixels, and it'll go out to the side. So that's approximately what we want to do. We want to move the before element a little bit to the left. And the nice thing about using position absolute is, as you can see, if we get rid of this, the list item is actually being moved to the right by the presence of the before element. So if you change it to absolute, it goes back to where it would have been if you weren't using the before element at all. So we're going to do left 1 EM. Now we need to find the content of our pseudo element. So let's go find code arrows. And we'll find an interesting one. All right, I like this arrow. So let's grab that. And we will just paste that right into the content box. So instead of the X mark, we now have this arrow, and I think that's about in the right spot, but maybe we need to move it to the left just a little bit. Maybe one more. Okay, I think that looks pretty good. And then now let's change the color. So start with pink. Okay, that looks fine. If you like, maybe like an aquamarine. Or you can just inspect the elements, and then if you go to the pseudo element, you can use this nice color picker and get the exact color you want. You'll pick this kind of sea green here, and then let's copy the color code, and we will paste that in our color. Okay. Let's save the changes again, and we're pretty good on that list now. Now, the next thing you see here is this separator element, and this is fine. It's like a basic horizontal rule. It's a little gray line that goes across the page, but there's a couple things we could do with it. And what I would like to do is put a little icon, maybe with a circle around it, in the center of this horizontal separator. And again, we're going to do this by using a pseudo element. So the first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to assign a class to this divider. So we got our separator here, and we're going to make it icon separator. And we'll update the post. And then back on the front end, let's right click on this and inspect just to get the right class that we need. So we need to target HR of class icon separator. So HR.icon separator. And now we know that the first thing we want to do is make it position relative so that we can position the pseudo element absolutely. So let's do that. And maybe we don't want it to be full width. Maybe we want it to be about, we'll have to gauge the width, but let's try 40% now. And as you can see, oh, that's not quite wide enough. Let's go 50%, but it's off to the left now. I want it to be centered. So we're going to set the margins. We can just do margin left auto, and then margin right auto. By just setting the margin left and margin right to auto and ignoring the other margins, we won't screw with the top and bottom margins that are already set by your theme. And we can adjust those if we need to later. We'll see what the spacing looks like when we get the element on there. But I think that's a good width. And then now let's get to building the pseudo element. So now we will target, it's an HR element of class icon separator. And then it's the before pseudo element. So again, to create this element, the first thing you have to do is give it content. And you will see that it instantly creates this before element. Whereas if you delete this line, it goes away and then you make it reappear. And then we're going to give it a size. So let's start with like width 30 pixels, height 30 pixels. And then we're going to give this a background color so we can see it. So let's go gray and position absolute. Now, as you can see, it's obvious where it is. And if we hover over the after elements, it is the right size. It's 30 pixels by 30 pixels, but we can't see the whole thing. We can only see the 1 pixel that overlaps with the HR element itself. And the reason that is because if we go over here on the HR element, you can see that by default, the overflow is set to hidden, which means anything that is outside this 1 pixel line is going to be hidden. So we need to set the overflow for this element to visible. So any HR of class icon separator, the overflow will be visible. Now we can get rid of the content here, and we're going to position this where we want it. So I think we want this to be a little bit bigger. So let's try 40 pixels by 40 pixels. That might be too big. 35, 35. Okay, that looks about right. And then it looks like we are going to need some margin. So let's just go ahead and change all the margins. So we're going to change the margin to top margin, and we want maybe 25 pixels, and the left and right margin to auto. And that's not quite enough, so we're going to need to make it 45. Okay, that should work for now. Maybe 50 pixels. Okay, now we need to move this after element, sorry, it was a before element, to the center of this line here. That's what we want to do. So I want to make it an even number in width. Actually, it's 1 pixel. Let's see. So we want it to be as close to center as we can. So to do that, if we were to say something like position it from the left 50%, you'd think it would put it in the middle, but it's actually not, because it's going 50% of the width of the horizontal rule, which is right here, to the left side of the before element. So how do we actually get it to be the middle, to be right here? Well, there's a cool CSS feature called calc, which allows you to calculate the right position, and I'll show you how that works. So we'll go calc, oops, sorry. We're gonna use this for the position. So calc 50%. So we want 50% of the separator minus half the width of this element. And we're just gonna round to 17 pixels because we can't do 17.5. And then you gotta make sure they touch. It's very, very finicky on the formatting, so the calc has to be right up next to the parentheses. And as you can see, it's basically centered right there. And then we want to move it up a little bit too, so it's centered vertically on the line as well. So we will go, let's see, top minus 17 pixels. I think that looks about right. If we made it 18 pixels, I think 17 pixels is right. Okay. So that's where we want it to be. And now let's get rid of this background maybe, or we can change the background color a little bit. And we're just going to add a border. So border one, we'll start with gray. And then we're going to get rid of the background color, or we're just going to make it lighter. So I'm going to go back and use the nifty color picker just to see what it's going to look like. Okay, that looks about right. So we'll copy that color and we'll go back here. Got to close out of that. Go back here to where we set the background color. All right, and let's save the changes. And then now we want to put an icon in here. So we're going to set the background image to a URL. Then I'm going to grab a URL from my media library. So let's do a nifty little mountain. We're going to copy the file location. And parentheses, quotes, and then the location. And as you can see, you can't see it. And that's because the image is super big and it's just taking over the entire thing. So we need to set the background size. And we'll do like 25 pixels to start. And now it's showing up in here, but we're having the same issue again. So we want to make background repeat, no repeat. Okay, and then we want to position it exactly in the center. And all you have to do to that is background position, center, and it will center it automatically for you. Now let's make this a little bit bigger. That's gonna be too big, but we can try like 32, 30 pixels. That looks okay. Here we go. 28. And then because this icon is a little bit circular, maybe we want to make the entire element and the border a little bit circular. So let's see how that looks. Let's try, and I like to do it right after the border. So let's try border radius 100%. And then we'll probably need to make this a little bit wider. So we're gonna have to change all our calculations a little bit, but let's go 40 pixels wide, 40 pixels tall. And as you can see, it's now off center a little bit. So we have to change our calculation here. So we're gonna do 20 pixels as half of the element, and then negative 20 pixels from the top to center it. And that looks just about perfect, I think. So let's save the changes. And the one thing I want to do still is go back and add a little bit more margin to this. So we're going to go 60 pixels on the top and bottom. And for whatever reason, I don't think it's overriding our existing settings. So let's try adding important to the rule. Now I see. Okay. All right, that looks fine. And now here's a shameless plug for a product I love so that I can pay for my son's college. If you're starting a website for the first time or looking to upgrade your hosting, you should check out Cloudways. It's the most affordable WordPress VPS hosting I've found, and I use it for almost all of my high traffic sites. It's powerful, fast, scalable, and actually cheaper than most shared web hosting. You can spin up your own private server with a single click and start building your site within minutes. There are no long-term contracts or promotional pricing gimmicks, and since they offer hourly billing, you can literally try it for less than 2 cents. To get the best advertised price and support our channel, make sure you use my link, which is cwdeal.com. Okay, so next up we have this heading here, and your theme probably has some settings to style your headings. You can probably choose the font and maybe the font color for your headings. So we're not going to get too crazy. You can handle the typography settings in your theme, but maybe we would just want to add a border, like a bottom border, and perhaps we want to center our H2 headings. So to do that, just to confirm, we're going to check. We don't need a class or anything. We're just going to assign this to all the elements, and it's just a standard H2 tag. So we're going to target an H2 block here and open our brackets, and we will say border bottom 1 pixel. Just to see how that looks. It looks okay. I think we want to give it a little padding at the bottom, just so it looks a little bit cleaner. You get some separation, and then I would like to center my headings on the page. So let's go text align center. There we go. I think that looks pretty good. On to this ordered list here. And there's not a ton you can do with ordered lists, but you've probably been on some websites where you've seen them and they have like cool colored numbers. And I'm going to show you a trick that lets you change the colors of the number before your list. So the first thing we need to do is either we want to assign a class for this, because we don't want to do this for all of our order lists. Maybe we just want to do it for a special one. So we're going to go back. Let's save our changes first. Then we're going to go back to this order list, and we'll call it colorful list as our CSS class, and we'll update the post. And then we go back to the front end and refresh. Have to go back through here again. And let's inspect the element. So you can see it's ordered list OL tag of class colorful list. So the first thing we need to do in order to change the color of those numbers is first we have to remove those numbers altogether. So let's go ordered list of class colorful list. And we're going to go list style type none, just like we did with the ordered list. Okay, so the first thing that we need to do now is we need to create another pseudo element. So let's go ol.colorful list before. And the reason we're doing before is because a before element gets automatically put in front of the thing. And if you do an after element, it'll be put at the end. And since we want the list to, the little list bullets to go in the front, we're going to do it as a before element. So we've created that, and we'll just give it some content so that it exists. And if we go back up here, you can see that our before element exists. And let's just make it so that we can see it. I'll drop this down a little bit. So let's give it a width for now. 30 pixels, background gray. And use a height too. And display inline block. Okay. Then we need to change the position to relative so it goes in front of our list item. Oop, I know what I did wrong. So I was targeting the order list, but we actually want the before element to be on all the list items, on each list item. So we're going to do order list of class colorful list, list item before. And now it's right in front, so I can probably get rid of that. Okay, now that we have our before element set up, we want to give it some content. So what we're going to do, and this is the neat trick. So first, we're going to create our counter, and we're going to do that with something called counter reset. And we're going to give it a name. So we're going to call it colorful list counter. And what this does is it makes sure that every time it comes to this list of class colorful list, it resets the counter and starts it over, because we don't want this to continue if there's another list down the page. If it was 1, 2, 3, 4, you don't want it to start at 5, 6, 7, 8 on the next list. We want to start it over. So we're going to counter reset, and then we are going to make the counter for the list item content. We want it to be counter, and then we'll put the name of our counter in here. So colorful list counter. Need to get rid of the counter. And one more thing, let's see. ol.colorful list item. And we need to do counter reset colorful list counter. Well, that didn't work. Oh, no. Counter increment. Sorry. Increment. Something is still not quite right. Let's see. There we go. Just need to remove the quotes. Okay. Let's go back to making this an inline block. Oh. Okay. Okay, now that we got our counter working, we can go ahead and get rid of the background here. So let's just, we might use that later. So let's just comment it out for now. And we want to control the positioning of our list here. So let's go, the first thing we want to do is we want to change the position of the list item to relative. And the reason we do that is once again, so we can make the position of our pseudo elements absolute. So let's go position absolute. And once again, it's going to collapse on top. Basically, it takes it out of flow. And so it's sitting right on top of our list item. And now we can put it wherever we want. So let's go left minus 1.5 EMs and see how that looks. That seems too far. Okay. That looks about right. And now this isn't that much better than what we had before. In fact, we've lost the period after our list. So let's put some styles on this. The first thing maybe I want to do is add some color. So let's try orange. And then maybe we could give it a background. So for now, we can go back here and let's align the number right in the middle. And then we could, if we get rid of the height, it will be the same height as our list element, which is good. And let's give it a border radius. Let's make it a circle. Okay, so the problem now is it's wider than it is tall. So we just need to get the width just right. That looks about right. And we could verify the line height of our list item if we wanted by going to computed, and line height is 25.5 pixels. So that's close enough. Now we need to adjust the spacing again. So let's go 1.4 EMs again, 1.6, 1.7. Okay, that looks all right. And then we need to put some margin between these so that we have space for our pseudo elements. So let's go back to the list item, and we just want to put margin bottom on our list items, and let's try 5 pixels to start. So that's a decent amount of spacing. Okay, now this looks fine. I think I want to adjust the colors though to make it match the overall theme and make this really pop off the page. So let's just inspect this, grab the color picker, and I want to make maybe like a nice blue, a little bit lighter. We'll try that for now, and then change the color to white. I think that looks pretty good. Just eyeballing it. So let's change that background color here. And the text color to white. And then just to make it pop a little bit more, we're going to add some box shadow. And CSS box shadow sort of gives it a little bit of a third dimension and lifts the element off the page a little bit. So we're going to put it 1 pixel to the right and 1 pixel down, and then maybe it'll spread. Let's try 3 pixels, and let's try this for a color. I think maybe we want that a little bit darker, so we could try it. Just a subtle little effect, and you can play around with it and adjust the colors and see if you like it a little bit darker. That actually looks pretty good. So close out of there, paste the color, and save it. Hey, if you're enjoying this video, could you please take a quick second to hit that like button and make sure you subscribe to get all our latest tips and tutorials whenever they come out. Thanks. All right. And now we come down to the image, and the image looks pretty nice, and a lot of people will just sort of leave their images as is, but I just want to show you a couple things you can do to your images if you want it. So we'll just do it on the front end so you can sort of see it as we're messing around with it. And the classes you would want to target are the parent element is WP block image is the class, and the image itself is just the image tag. So we're not going to assign a special class to this. We're just going to do this to all our images. But if you wanted to do it to just certain images, like if you wanted to add a border to certain images, maybe you would add a border class in the Gutenberg editor. But we're just going to edit it up front here. So we're going to target WP block image, image class containing an image element, and you could add a border. Okay, it's like a nice subtle border, or you could add box shadow. Just to give it some lift off the page. Could make the box shadow spread further. Okay. So that really pops it off the page. Or let me show you one little cool thing. You can sort of make it look like a framed picture. And to do that, we're going to add let's see. And then to add the matting, we're just going to add some padding all the way around. So let's try 25 pixels. And there you go. So it looks all like a framed picture. I think it's very pretty and could look pretty cool on certain blogs. All right, I think this looks pretty good, but we could maybe give it some box shadow if you wanted to pop off the page a little bit. So we'll do 0 pix for the x-axis, and then maybe we'll do 10 pixels down. So we're going to drop it down, and then we're going to have a really long box shadow, but we're going to bring it back inside a little bit so you don't see it as much on the edges, and it kind of comes down through here. Just very subtle lift off the page, and we'll just leave the default color as it is. And then maybe for the fig caption, if you just want to maybe change the font of the caption, maybe we can make it a little bit like a newspaper font. So WP block image class, which is containing the fig caption element, and a style that we're just going to change the font family to, let's say, Courier. And that looks a little bit light, so maybe we want to change the font weight to bold. All right, I think that looks pretty darn good. Okay, so we're going to style this group, but first I want to style this button. And the first thing I want to do is I want to add a class to this button so that my styles don't affect all the buttons on my site. They're just going to affect this button and any other button that I assign this class to. So to do that, let's go back into the editor, and we're going to click on the button and go down to the advanced tab, and we can add an additional class. And we'll just call it my button for now. That's as good as any. And we'll update. All right, now back on the front end. And if we inspect the element, you can see that the class, we have to refresh the page. Go back. And now if we inspect the element, our class should be there. So block buttons, my button. And as you can see, there's a wrapper and then another wrapper. And then there's the button itself, which is a link that's been styled. So in order to style this, there's a couple things we can do. So to style the button itself, we're going to apply our styles to the A class. So we want to target any A with the class of, First, we have to make sure we're targeting based on my button. So we're going to do my button A with the class of WP block button link. And you probably actually don't need to add that class to the A because there's only going to be one A link inside this div, but just to be safe, we're going to put it there. Might save some headaches later. And now we can add our styles. All right, so what do we want to do to style this button? First of all, let's say I prefer square buttons. I don't really like rounded buttons, so let's get rid of the border radius. And then maybe I want a border on it as well. So let's set a border. We'll try that for now. We can change that in a little bit. And maybe we want it to be a little bit wider. So let's give a minimum width. Let's try 250 pixels. So no matter what, it's always going to be at least that wide. And then if the text is wider than that, it'll actually spread out a little bit. And let's give it a background color. And we'll try teal as a starting point. And maybe tweak that a little bit. And should we give it a different font color? Let's try. I think white looks better. We'll make the font size a little bit bigger. Too big, that's too big. Okay. And I think we need to change that border color. So let's go over here. Okay, that looks all right. And we like our buttons to hop off the page, so we're going to give it some box shadow. I know I use too much box shadow, I know. All right, that's just a little bit of pop off the page, and maybe we want to make this a slightly darker color. Nah, we just want it to spread a little bit further. So let's try this color. And we'll give it a little more spread. That looks all right. And maybe we want a cooler hover cover than that. And we're going to let it, and when we hover, we want the button to move a little bit. So we're going to target the button again. And then we're going to target the hover state. And just so we can see it while we're editing it, we're going to click on the hover pseudo, or this hover state there, and we're going to click hover. So it's just going to show us the button the whole time we're styling it. We're going to see the hover state. And what should we do? So let's go background color, And it's not working, so I notice here that I did a misspelling, so let's correct that. And it should change our hover color. Okay, and then we're gonna just choose a darker color here, just so. And we'll copy that hex code. Close this color picker. Paste it in. And we want the button to move when it's hovered, so we're going to go transform, translate the Y axis, and we'll do a subtle 3 pixels. That might even be too much. We're just going to do 2 pixels. And maybe we want the box shadow to get a little bit bigger. And maybe have a little bit different color. So maybe we want like a subtle. I don't know, let's try I just want to do this to get a color picker up, and then we can pick a good color. So we got that up. And what if we just did like a very subtle bluish gray. And that looks okay. So we'll just copy that color, close the color picker. I forgot that like 6 times already. Paste that in, and we'll save our changes. And then now, just to test our button out, we're going to hover over it. I think that box shadow effect is a little bit too in your face, but we'll just leave it for the sake of simplicity, so you get the idea. So that's our button. All right, now we can go ahead and style the group. So let's make sure this is saved. We're gonna go back to our post, and we actually have to create the group. So far these are all individual elements, and to create the group, you just select the first element in the group that we want to group, and then you're gonna hold down Shift and click your mouse button, and then we're gonna go group, and they'll all be added to a nice little group. And if we update the posts, and I'm going to close this for a second. Oh, it always does that. But you can see one thing about the groups is by default WordPress, or at least my theme maybe, adds a little bit of padding inside the group, so you can see how this is moved over. And you may or may not want that, so we can style that when we do the styles for the group. So let's go, and we'll open back up Custom CSS Pro. And it's going to take us back to the wrong page again. And I want to add a class to my group, because not all my groups are created equal. So, and anytime you lose sight of your group, because now I'm clicking in here and it's not actually touching my group, you can go right outside your group, like just above the top element, and select it that way. Or you can go up here to the block navigation. I'm in the group, so it's not showing it to me. But if we go up here and scroll to the bottom, and we got our group right there, and it'll select it for me. So now I'm going to go to the advanced tab. I'm going to add a class, and we'll just call it my group for now. This kid name is any. And let's go back to my Gutenberg blocks, and let's inspect our group. Okay, so it's applied our class. So we have it's a div block, and it's a WP block of class my group. So to target this, let's target it using both classes, just so that we can override any other styles. I'll give us a little bit more specificity. So it's going to be a WP block group that is also of class my group. And just so for people that aren't that familiar with CSS, if the my group class was inside the WP block group class, like say this was the element that had the my group class, then you would put a space here. So it's this class containing that class, but because they're in the same element, they're joined. So it's both classes in the same element. And we're going to open our brackets, and let's just start with a border. so you can see it on the page. That looks nice enough. We might want to mess with the padding, but for now, I think we're going to add a background color, and it might be overdoing it. So let's go to the color picker again. And that's okay. It's like a light violet. So we'll grab the hex color here. And this border is not quite cutting it. I would say it needs to be a little bit darker. So let's go PBB. And that looks okay. And then let's say we want to style the heading. First of all, let's see what the heading class is, or the heading level is. It's an H3 class. And we haven't assigned, sorry, it's an H3 level heading. And we haven't assigned a class to this heading. And we certainly could do that. But another option is we could just target the first H3 heading in this group, or if it's the first child element of the group. So let's try this. We're going to do WP block. Actually, we'll just target the my group class. And then we want the H3 element that is the first child. And that's kind of a pseudo selector again. Oh, I don't need to close those brackets. It closes them automatically. And just to make sure that we've selected the right one, we're just going to try changing the color. Okay, I changed the color. So we've got the right targeting down. And again, this will only select any H3 element that is the first child inside the my block group, or the first element of this type inside the block group. And what do we want to do to this? Let's say we want to change the color. And that's kind of an aggressive color, but maybe we can... Is there like a nice maroon in here somewhere? What do we got? Oh, gotta grab that hex color. And maybe we want to change the font weight. Make it a little bit thicker. So let's try 600. Okay. And we could do some nifty stuff. For example, let's try something a little crazy. First of all, we got to make the container elements position relative again. And now you know what's coming. Of course, we're going to make this position absolute. And once again, it's been taken out of the flow, and we're going to put it right at the top. And we're going to we want to set the width to 100% of the parent, and it looks like we need to set the left edge to 0.2. And now if we look at the element, it's perfectly centered within the group. And you can, if we change the width of the group and we look back at this element, again, you can see it's still the same width of the group, and it just expands. So these percentile widths, it's relative to the container element. So let's go back to the normal view here. And maybe we want to put a background on it. That's not quite dark enough. Okay, now this is still pretty ugly, so I'm gonna mess with this background color a little bit and maybe try to match it a little bit to the theme color a little better. We'll try that for now. And We'll just go with white as our font color for now. So let's paste this background color, and font color is white. And then now we're going to put an icon in here just to make it a little bit interesting. And I kind of liked this icon that we used up here. So I think we'll put that back. So first we need to put some padding to make space for it. And you could do it in the outer parent element, but I would actually prefer to do it in the inner container, which is basically there just to add padding. And if we look to see what there is right now, it's just 40 pixels all the way around. And I think I want to add a bunch at the top, maybe another 100 pixels to make room for the icon. And I think I want to also add some padding on the sides, just to sort of condense the content a little bit. So in order to target that, we want to target this one right here. So we are going to get those spaces back. We're going to target my group class, which contains the WP block group double underscore inner container. And let's go padding. Let's try 130 pixels for now. Did I target the wrong element? Because the padding is not moving. WP block group inner container. Oh, I see what I did. I didn't add the class. So we added the class. It made the padding. And maybe make it 60 pixels on the sides. And if you just specify 2 dimensions, it's going to make it 130 on the bottom, but we don't want that. So we want 40 pixels on the bottom and 60 on the sides. That looks good. And then let's go ahead and add that background image. So I think we want to put the background image in this container. That way we don't have to adjust the positioning of the background image for this heading here. So let's image URL, and then I'm going to grab that back from the media library, copy this URL, go back here, quotes. What is it telling me I did wrong here? Oh, I haven't put the semicolon. Always put your semicolons. All right, now we have the same issue again, so we want to go, and I'll show you a little trick. You can actually put things like background repeat and stuff on the same line, so you just have to change this. So background, and we'll go no repeat, and we want it to be center, top, and I can't remember how to specify the size on one line, so let's do the background size here, and let's try 50 pixels. That is too small. We want to make it probably 80 pixels for now, and we need to move it because this inner container, I was wrong. It still goes up to the top of the box because it's padding and not margin, so we need to move the background image down a little bit so it's being centered left to right, but we don't want it from the top. We want it maybe try 40 pixels down from the top. That looks about right. That's pretty good. I think maybe we'll go just try to get it centered exactly between the text, and we could add a little bit more padding at the top here. Maybe 135. And just a teeny bit down further. All right, that looks pretty good. So that is our group all styled. One more thing you could do if you wanted is if you want to kind of condense it on the page so it's not quite as wide as the other content, you could do something like margin. We'll specify the top and bottom margin. We'll say 40 pixels to make it stand out. Oh, I'm styling the wrong element here. Need to do this to the my group element. So we're going to do margin 40 pixels top and bottom, and then also maybe give it 40 pixels on the left and right, and that'll just kind of condense it into a little bit of a square. That looks pretty good. If you're starting a website for the first time or looking to upgrade your hosting, you should check out Cloudways. It's the most affordable WordPress VPS hosting I've found, and I use it for almost all of my high traffic sites. It's powerful, fast, scalable, and actually cheaper than most shared web hosting. You can spin up your own private server with a single click and start building your site within minutes. There are no long-term contracts or promotional pricing gimmicks, and since they offer hourly billing, you can literally try it for less than 2 cents. To get the best advertised price and support our channel, make sure you use my link, which is cwdeal.com. Whew, that was long. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you got questions on this tutorial or suggestions for future videos, please let me know in the comments. And don't miss my next video on how to develop WordPress on your computer for free using local. And then I'll show you how to migrate your local site to a live server. Now, go build that website.